Hello, everyone. This is Lupe Munoz.
And I'm Steve McKeon, and this is the Leadership Exchange.
Steve, the end of season 2. And I think this would be an appropriate time for us to reflect on season 2 a little bit. We're going to recap this for everyone that has been listening to our episodes. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the future, what season 3, we've discussed that we're going to have a leadership discussion around leadership reflection and continuous improvement. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, no, that sounds perfect. The interesting thing with season 2 is was really based around some of the feedback that we got as we closed out season 1. And one of the things that we really targeted was making sure that we brought in some other outside perspectives, as well as continually looking at ways that our listeners wanted to hear more of the stories that not only you and I have, Lupe, but also our guests. And so I think through the season, we really kind of delivered on that. And just to kind of do a quick shout out to our guests, season 2, episode 2, we had leader routines with people systems. And our guest was Alex Aranda, who both you and I work with, and really an enjoyable conversation, as it always is with Alex.
Yeah,
and then,
that was a really great discussion.
Yeah, and then we moved to season 2 and episode 3, which was leadership of high-performance work teams with Mike Sweeney, and that was just a delight, Lupe.
Mike has always been an exceptional leader and an individual that really understands people. It was really great to talk about some of the things that as leaders we want to do and we need to do to be able to create some high-performance work team environments. That definitely was one of our episodes where everything just clicked. And I feel like that was really very common on all our guests this year, Steve. It seemed like everything clicked. The discussions were very organic and natural and free-flowing. I feel like for season 3, we're definitely going to continue to have guests throughout the season and continue to have very unique and different perspectives of leadership.
Just reflecting on the conversation we had with Mike, or what our listeners probably don't know is we had to actually do a second recording. So I was spoiled in getting to have an opportunity to visit with Mike more than once. But I love the story he tells about, his own challenge he had as a leader of public speaking. And I think that was just such a impactful episode to share that with others. Obviously, he's grown well beyond that now with his current career, that's what he does. But anyway, just really good conversations. And then, of course, we went on to, one of my favorite people, Lydia Peterson, and conversations with her. And Lydia worked with me in an organization for many years and continues to lead the function that I left when I moved out of that organization. And Lydia has taken it on and really taken it to whole new levels. It was just really good to kind of hear her story as a female leader and some of the challenges she had in what is typically a very dominated male industry, and the delightful stories she shared with overcoming that. To the point where, I know you and Lydia now are on speed dial with a positive relationship. And it was interesting how much you guys shared in common in a little bit of the journey, Lupe, with the, both of you going down kind of a similar path in the military, and then not the same after, but that was fun to hear.
It was pretty cool to connect with Lydia in that discussion and be able to get that perspective. I felt like everyone can relate to being able to take on challenges or adversity when it comes to maybe personalities that you're working with, or maybe people that have a mindset of dismissing most people's opinion. I thought her perspective was a very good one, and one that I think resonates with people because we all deal with those situations throughout our careers.
Of course, after Lydia, we met with Ben Blaney and, learned all about the West Ham United Football Club. As well as some lessons in leadership. And the takeaway with Ben's episode, he really shared some important aspects that leaders need to have. And, one of the probably most prominent parts of that was the ability for a leader to be situational. You have to be able to read what's going on and adapt to it. And he provided some just tremendous insight and examples of, where that works and maybe where it doesn't work. And then he coined a term that I really liked. He was reflecting on the leaders he worked with, and some that were great leaders that also had opportunities to improve on some of their practice and behavior. But then he also, referenced the term a lesser leader, which I thought was, a really polite way of saying, someone that he had worked with that, he wasn't super aligned with all the time. Through that conversation, he also shared he learned a big, I don't know, not lesson, but just kind of a practice from this leader. And that was great for him to share.
I think the thing that stuck out for me was the story that he had with his friend. I guess he was having a meal or something, and he was talking to a friend, or maybe they're having a drink. And his friend was asking about something that you would consider to be fairly common knowledge. And I think it had to do with the type of leadership, a servant leadership.
Yeah, the difference between a manager and a leader, right?
That's it. That's what it was. And I just thought, like, wow, I mean, here's an individual. It sounded like this individual was somewhat seasoned, and they had never experienced that and understood that. And Ben said something to the effect of that, I was a little sad about the fact that my friend was not aware of that. And it just kind of shows how, we assume that people that are high within an organization or experienced as leaders or managers, whatever title you want to give them, that they know these things, but in actuality, I feel like there's a void of knowledge when it comes to that. And I think that's part of why we're doing the episodes, Steve, is because we do feel that there's opportunity there, and we want to try and contribute to filling that void, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And after a really good conversation and just some really interesting feedback too that we were able to receive on both Mike, Liddy, and Ben's episodes, and how we kind of use that as we continue through the rest of season 2. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but boy, were we blessed with a guest that came on, and with Ron Crabtree. The conversation went well over an hour, to the point we needed to break it into 2 episodes because we didn't want to not share some of the insights that we gained with Ron, who's just a tremendous resource, and become a fan of Ron's and follow his podcast.
The amount of knowledge that Ron possesses, just, I'm basing it on the discussions that we had with him, a couple of discussions that we've had with him, is tremendous. And for season 3, I'm really hoping that Ron will come back. I know he's told us that he's interested in, coming back. So I'm really excited at that prospect. I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg when it came to the topics we could talk with Ron.
Yeah, absolutely. And I filled half of a notebook with just capturing the information Ron was sharing with us, and just has so much knowledge in industry. And the thing that's really amazing to me about Ron is the current business that he has, where he's really out there making sure that companies that he's working with understand the challenge of labor. And Ben had brought that up in his episode too, this kind of war on talent that we have, of really trying to capture, the best and the brightest in order for you to continue to survive, I guess, in kind of the new world of quick pace, fast changing, high tech. And Ron had some phenomenal insight into what companies need to do. And he also shared with us a tool he likes to use to help get organizational alignment around change in organizations. And I thought that was just a really simple but a tremendous tool that, Lupe, you and I have talked about, how we can leverage that tool on some of the things that we work on in the change management space.
Reflecting back on that formula that he was talking about, it was really around like the likelihood that we are going to be effective with this change management is based on this formula. So if we're an organization or a team that needs to make a change, ask yourself this formula, and that will tell you if you are more likely or less likely to be successful with that change management, whatever that change would be. So I also really like that. And I thought that's going to be something that I'm personally going to use as we we tackle big topics within the organization I'm working with, and so I really took a lot from that discussion with him. And then we wrapped up the season, right? We wrapped up episode 10 was with Twanda Young. Twanda brought a very interesting perspective with being a retired brigadier general with the Army and being so involved with public speaking and leadership and a published author and just so many different things that she was able to bring, and really had another great discussion with her around her experience with young leaders that were having challenges and how she advised them, but also how she had to herself go through adversity and had mentors and had people that greatly impacted her career and her life in a positive way. A lot of really great stories from Twanda, and another person that we hope to invite in the future for another recording.
Yeah, that was a great conversation with Twanda, Lupe. And the fact that she openly shared some very humbling moment in her own career where she had to stop and say, you know what, I made a mistake, and how important it is to have the right advisors around you. And she confides heavily in her husband, who sounds like a great guy, to give her some of that feedback when she kind of hears that something might need to be changed. And the fact that that's a continuous thing in your careers, there are things she shared with us that, you're never perfect at this. You constantly have to evolve, assess. And, that's one of the big messages that she gets out there to her clients and people that she coaches, is the importance of that. But also the other one she spoke to us a little bit about, Lupe, was just the ability to manage conflict, right? And how you don't always have to agree with someone to get through a successful problem evolution. So I thought that was really insightful. And I think, in the future episodes, we'll probably dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
The other thing, just for our fans, our listeners, don't know if they're fans, but our listeners, is the fact that I was remote in the Philippines, and we checked our technology and found out that we can really record with people from outside the U.S. pretty easily. So that's going to open up some doors for some additional guests that we're looking at right now and in conversation with for season 3. So excited about that as well.
Let's talk about this leadership topic that we started this episode with. What do you think of when I say leadership reflection and continuous improvement?
As leaders, you're moving forward and going fast a lot of times. And if you don't learn the practice of stopping and getting feedback, reflecting on not just the things that have gone well, but the things that didn't go well, you're really missing an opportunity. And your likelihood of being successful in the long range is going to go down because you don't stop for that self-reflection.
Steve, I think you're on the mark with those comments. For our team, for our team of listeners, I'll say, it's very important, and we're going to kind of do that exercise with everyone listening. We're going to go through the process of really reflecting as leaders around our second season and some of the feedback that we got from our listeners and how we're going to maybe change what we're going to do in season 3. And this is an exercise that every leader should be doing at some frequency. There's no cookie cutter approach to it. I think the most valuable part is that you're reflecting and you have the mindset that you can get better. I think that's the key. If you're reflecting about how good you were and how good you did at something, that's one thing, but it's not useful. Like, hey, how could I do even better? You're always striving to do better. And I feel like that sometimes is something that we as leaders do not do. We say we see the value in it, but we don't take the time. And I mean, like putting it on your calendar or having some routine that you're very consistent with that involves you reflecting on the last week, a major activity, where you are with the team that you're leading. But too many times I hear people telling me that they reflect, and I ask, when was the last thing you reflected on? Then all of a sudden I get that deer in the headlights look. And I realized that maybe that's not the case.
Lupe, and I think what's important with that practice as well, and you and I both have learned this and openly share, and continually look to improve on it, because I can tell you that it is one of the things that can be a blind spot for me at times, is as you're doing that reflection, and to your point you made, at the start, is you really need to be truthful and honest with the information that you're taking in. And then also take a minute to celebrate those wins, though, and in a way that recognizes the team of people that helped you get to that point. And I think you don't rest on that, though. Then, as you mentioned, Lupe, you take that information, you build on it. What's okay now? What's next? We were able to accomplish these goals, or we got so far through the project. How do we bring it home? And I think those are the things that leaders who are very successful leading teams of people have figured out and do very well. And as Tawanda told us, it's a lifelong lesson of continue looking at that and doing the self-reflection.
You've got to be very intentional. For example, I recently had a discussion with someone that's new to the company. They were onboarding, and they're a partner to me. And I asked her, and these are questions I ask often, and this is an example of what I mean about being intentional and continuously striving to be better. I asked her, what am I doing that you want me to continue to keep doing? And what's something that I haven't done yet that you would like for me to do? She was a little shocked by that question, because she's like, wow, I've never been asked that question. But to me, those are the types of questions we got to ask, because then all of a sudden it frames it in a way that, I could have said, hey, what am I doing right and what am I doing wrong? Right. But people have a real hard time answering that question. They don't want to offend you. They don't want to hurt your feelings. But if you say, hey, what am I doing that you would like for me to keep doing? That's probably something that you're doing right. And then when you're asking, what can I do that I haven't been doing, then that could be an example of like, hey, how could I be better? Right. What am I doing wrong? Maybe. Well, you haven't been spending a lot of time with me, Lupe. Could have been the answer. I'm like, you know what? That's good feedback. I'll strive to do that more often. But I mean, I'll randomly ask people that I work with closely, whether they're partners or direct reports. I'll ask that question because I'm constantly looking to improve the way I approach things with everybody. And sometimes there are blind spots, like you said, Steve, and sometimes we need that different perspective from other people to wake us up to that opportunity.
Yeah, Lupe, and that's an excellent point of getting that perspective and getting that feedback. And so one of the things that you can use to provide you that feedback is the intentional layout of who you're going to go after and get that feedback. So typically, you want it from the person you report into, because that's really important feedback. You need to make sure you guys are aligned and that's you're on track. And then peer-to-peer feedback is probably one of the most powerful things that you can find within your management teams. Those people that you've developed that trust and that relationship with, that can tell you, hey, you nailed it on that one, or not quite. You got a little bit of work to do there. Here's my thoughts, or here's some of my feedback. And it's amazing, as we've done some of the leadership training, Lupe, and we talk about that practice, how many people tell us that they're really afraid to share and do that. And, when you ask why, the answer is, well, because I don't want them thinking I don't know what I'm doing, right? And again, it's, the building of the trust. And then once you get over that barrier, it's just refreshing, right? Because you don't have to have all the answers. You can have an off day and you can say, hey, I was a bit off today. What do you think? Give me some feedback. And, those are the nuggets of gold that can really, propel you through some challenges, difficult situations. And then, of course, the other one is the people that are reporting in to your organization, the team you're supporting, frequently asking for that feedback from them. And I'll just tell you, the leader I work with now asks me that pretty much on a weekly basis. So, I admire that. So anyway, good practices all around. And I think, Lupe, going to your other question you asked me around continuous improvement, how does this all tie together? And that's it, is that a lot of times you're not going to know the areas to improve or work on without this reflection and the feedback. And you may get lucky and get it right, but the chances are you're going to get a bigger gain when you pause, reflect, and then adjust. And, with the podcast, Lupe, why don't you share some of the feedback we've gotten recently?
Some of our listeners have given us some valuable feedback that we're definitely looking to incorporate into our season 3. We've received 2 different pieces of feedback that actually, one could say, conflict with each other. One was, we appreciate having the guests that you have on the episodes, but we really value when just you and Steve are talking. In season 2, mostly had guests on our episodes, but in season 3, we'll be mixing that up more. So there will be episodes where it's just you and me, Steve. Sorry for that, Steve.
Looking forward to it, actually, Lupe. I think that was good.
And then we'll have episodes where we continue to have great guests. Expect that to be a little different. I think the other thing was that sometimes in our episodes, it may not be clear either in the heading or at the start of the episode what the episode necessarily is going to touch on. And that was a really valuable piece of feedback that we received. And Steve, you and I both realized, that's a very good point and something we need to adjust. And so as we move forward, what we will do is we will be talking a little bit up front around, hey, this is what this episode is going to be about. And then we'll incorporate it into our title and into our notes for the episode. We're hoping by doing that, right, those listeners that are really focused on a very specific topic will have the ability to see that in the title or in the note and be very interested in wanting to listen in on that versus something that maybe is not at all a topic that they're interested from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, Lupe, and just to kind of wind it down for today's podcast, one, thank you for the great opportunity to continue to work with you on this. I really enjoy the podcast and the conversations that we have and just the whole planning around it. And your great editing, as always, keeps the podcast errors to a minimum that we have to put on the air. But I really want to thank you for the great partnership and kind of what we've been able to accomplish so far.
Steve, it's mutual respect and appreciation for you and what you bring to the show. I'm really excited about season 3, and I think that those listeners that have been with us, we appreciate you for continuing to listen to what we share, and we're very excited about that continuing into season 3. Our fan base continues to grow, and we're humbled by that and appreciative of the airtime that we share with those individuals. We take this topic very serious, and we hope it shows in the material that we present to everyone and share with everyone.
That's right. And for those of you guests that were on season 1, we're going to be reaching out as well. Looking forward to connecting with some new folks, but also just want to check in with a couple of folks that we've been in conversation with as well. Don't be shy. And if our listeners out there, if you've got the name of a person you think can add a lot of value in a conversation with Lupe and I, please feel free to share that individual's name or put them in contact with us as well.
I want to remind our listeners this, please reach out to us, continue to provide us feedback. We're always looking for it. You can find us on 2 platforms, on Instagram and on Threads. If you just look for Leadership Exchange Podcast, you will find us. And we would welcome feedback from anyone that is listening, whether it's positive or, hey, there's an opportunity. We embrace it and we welcome it. So I hope everyone will reach out at some point.
So this is Steve McKeon.
And this is Lupe Munoz. And this is the Leadership Exchange.
Have a great day.